Hello and welcome back to the Cars Are Cozy YouTube channel. I'm David Taylor and I am so happy to say I am not driving an SUV. In fact, we have today the MG3 hatchback. This is MG's attempt at a B-segment rival to the Volkswagen Polo, Polo Vivo and Hyundai i20. Now in this video, we're going to find out whether it's good enough. But before I do that, there's almost 500 MGs for sale on Cars Are Cozy. And plus, if you don't want one of those, we have 85,000 other cars to choose from. Right, Carl, let's do it.
Wanna buy a Honda? Cars.coza is the smartest way to go when looking for your next car. With a simple search engine that even speaks South African. Download the Cars.coza app now.
Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this review, MG3 is available in a full model lineup, 270,000 Rand, but I want to talk about the styling. Yes, I do think it's color dependent. I think the blue and the yellow is going to stand out even more, but this I don't find inoffensive. This is modern, it's clean, it's simple, it's unpolarizing, and I think this is what mainstream motoring needs. Inside the MG3, well, first impressions count for everything. I've got a minimalist styled 7-inch instrument cluster, plus your traditional 10-inch screen up on the central dashboard. Perceived build quality is pretty good. I've got some soft leather over here. The ears are a little bit scratchy, but I'm not going to be touching those often. And it's buttons. It's nice to have physical buttons in a car. In terms of connectivity, you get 2 USB-A ports, and unfortunately you only get wired Android Auto and wired CarPlay. This doesn't bother me. My phone battery doesn't last so well, so I'm happy to plug my phone in. Now, if you opt for this, the luxury trim over the comfort, you get some additional content. Things like auto lights, auto wipers, LED headlights, and you also get this partial leather trim, although I'm not 100% sold it's leather, and you get this nice wrapped steering wheel, which feels a bit more premium. Now, I just want to talk about this infotainment screen for a second. Now, MG, I'm sorry, I'm singling you out here, but you fall into the same trap as many other brands. Now, use case scenario over here, I've got Android Auto and I want to change the climate because it's summer, it's hot in Cape Town. Now, if I push the climate button, nothing happens. It's the same reason why Michael Jackson wore gloves. No one knows why this is happening. So instead, I have to exit out of Android Auto. I can do that, or I can push the home button. And then climate is here, and then there's a touchscreen button. And this is not ideal. And also, while I'm on that, you'd think for a luxury trim at 344,000, 345,000 Rand, you'd be getting climate control, and you don't. You just get cold, slightly warmer, warm temperature, and then Kalahari Desert, so you don't want that, not on a day like today. And there's your fan speeders on the touchscreen as well. So not great, but I suppose it works and you will get used to it. But a little bit grumpy right now. In MG's defense, however, at under 350,000 Rand, there's very few vehicles that offer this level of assisted driving, the ADAS system, if you will. Now, here it's badged under MG Pilot. An MG Pilot has things like adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist, the emergency auto braking, and so on. And these systems are great. Although they are a little intrusive, and the first time the lane keeping system went off, I got quite surprised because it was quite loud. You can switch these things off, and they're pretty easy to access, but they do switch themselves back on, which is not the end of the world. Officially, as it stands right now, this model has a 4-star Euro NCAP system, which is an enhancement of the earlier models. Those only had 3 stars. But during the recent Euro NCAP test of this vehicle, there was a really interesting report where it said that during the crash, the front seat actually came out of its mounting and the crash test dummy smacked into the steering wheel. And obviously this is not great because there's additional injuries. And check the clip, and it's really quite disturbing. Now, MG, to their credit, and this is one of the reasons why we test cars with Euro NCAP, is they can pick up faults like this and quickly rectify them. And MG, to their credit, have said, this is not great, we're going to fix this, and it'll be a no-cost fix. And most of the affected markets have already rolled out this fix. So that's food for thought. It doesn't happen very often. And Euro NCAP even said this is the first time we've seen something like this in the decades we've been crashing vehicles. When it comes to to B segment hatchbacks, rear cabin space isn't that much of a priority, but you still need the ability to carry smaller little people. So just please ignore my large frame in the back here. I see that the seats do have little indents for kneecaps. Those are cool. I just about fit in. Headroom, yeah, it should be good for the average human. Rear comfort space and features, we have aircon vents, we have a USB port and a little storage area. Yep, it gets the basics done. In terms of boot space, the MG3 can carry 3 cooler boxes. Remember guys, it's not a Cars or Coza review unless the budget cooler boxes are in. And that's pretty much 3 cooler boxes done and dusted. Job done. Okay, time to drive the MG3. Now please forgive my hair, we've got the monstrous Cape Southeaster, and whoever voted for Cape Town summers, no, the wind is terrible. But also it's a good test for this car because we can also see how it gets blown around, but I digress. Let's do a quick history lesson, if you will just tolerate me for a few seconds. So MG was founded in the 1920s as a British brand. They had lots of little cars. One of my favorites was the little MGB GT. What a sweet little thing. But since 2007, this British brand has been taken over by the Chinese. And right now, it's Shanghai Automotive, that's SAIC. They're in charge of MG, and they're also in charge of a few other brands, but MG is their bread and butter passenger vehicle in our market. And MG relaunched in South Africa at the end of 2024. Right now, the product portfolio is this little hatchback. Awesome to have a hatchback back in the market since the decline of things like the Clio, the Fiesta, and so on. But yeah, SUVs, and they've got the Cyberster, the electric car, electric sports car even, if you will. So now I've briefly touched on rivals for hatchbacks, and yes, B-segment hatchbacks, they're dying out, which is really sad. But in this segment, 350,000, 400,000 Rand, what else can you get? Hyundai i20, that I've mentioned, Polo Vivo, the Polo, the Clio. I mean, sadly, we no longer have a Fiesta, which is a shame. That was one of my favorite hatchbacks. We no longer have a Kia Rio either. So if you want a hatchback, your choices are limited. And remember, guys, you can use the Cars or Coza comparison tool to compare them and see which one shines where. So what exactly has MG South Africa introduced to the market with the MG3? Right, 4 derivatives, 270,000 Rand, the flagship model, that's a hybrid. And that one's really interesting, and I really want to drive that because that's making Polo GTI levels of performance, but as a hybrid. So I'm sure we'll get one of those to drive soon enough. But in the meantime, middle of the road models, you can get a 1.5 comfort manual that kicks off the range. But I think given the love for 2-pedal setup and convenience, you will be wanting the automatics. Now I say automatics, and that brings me onto the powertrain because this is a 1.5 naturally aspirated 4-cylinder petrol. Great, that's fine. Outputs 81 kilowatts, 142 newton meters, front wheel drive, and there's a CVT. Now guys, the CVT I don't have a problem with, but in this application it is a small red flag, and let me tell you why. The issue with a CVT in a small capacity naturally aspirated petrol engine is that the majority of CVTs that we drive now, they are turbocharged. Now, in turbocharged, the peak power, peak torque comes in at lower RPM. In an engine which is naturally aspirated, your peak power, peak torque is higher up in the rev range. And when you go higher up in the rev range, what happens with the CVT? Yeah, this is really, really not great in terms of overall refinement. But in defense of the car, I think the majority of customers will be doing exactly what I was doing before I revved the nuts off this car with the on-off switch of the accelerator. You'll instead just be gentle applying and gentle coasting and so on. And there it's much more restrained, much more quiet. But when you do want to overtake, brace yourself, there will be some noise. So yes, I have a love-hate relationship with a CVT, especially in an application like this. Look, if you're driving a lot of bumper-to-bumper traffic, you're going to appreciate how smooth it is. But remember that for those overtakes, this is going to be quite a noisy affair. But the one thing a CVT does do right, and if you drive with a measured approach, it's the fuel economy. And if you compare, using our compare tool, if you compare this car to its rivals, you'll see it's a little bit more fuel efficient. Officially, MG claims 6 litres per 100, and we came very close to that in the early part of our test period. I saw 6.1 at one stage, but we've been driving a lot in the urban environments and a lot of traffic, and right now we're getting 7.8. It wasn't 7.6 before we started this shoot, so I'm blaming Sean for this. The rest of the driving experience of MG3 I'm finding really pleasant. I mean, there's no multitudes of modes. You simply just knock the gearbox and that's into an eco mode. There's no sports, there's none of that. It's just sensible, well thought out commuting. As far as driving experience goes, like, as long as I keep my accelerator pedal measured and keep the revs under 2.5, I'm actually finding this ride quality and this driving experience pretty polite. It's a commuter car, and the thing when reviewing cars, guys, is you need to understand where a car is being positioned. So a little B segment hatchback at 344,000 Rand, you don't need dynamic handling. You just want to be comfortable, and the ride quality on these wheels, pump tires, this is fine. I found a couple of potholes and manhole covers. Yeah, this is fine. Absorption is fine. This car ticks the basics. If I had to nitpick, I'd say I'd want a little bit more feeling on the steering wheel, but again, I'm not finding anything dramatically out of order here. And this brings me to a critical point. And when we've tested cars, and we do, sure, what do you reckon? We do probably about 85, 90 cars a year. We probably film about 70 of those. You get into a car and you drive it for the first 15 minutes. And usually there's something that will just glare at you and you go, that's a little bit irritating. I wish they could have fixed that a bit better, and so on. This car is doing the basics correct. And for me, this is exactly what a new brand to South Africa's market needs to do correctly. Don't wow me with gadgets. Don't wow me with crazy powertrains or efficiency or anything. Just do the basics right. Let's talk about the money, because for a car like this to succeed, it has to be well priced. Now, I've already touched on the pricing. You can get into one of these with a manual gearbox, I might add, for 270,000 Rand. This one, the luxury, is 344,900 Rand. And I really think that is good value. Now, if you compare like for like, I would say the MG3 is pretty competitively priced against its naturally aspirated rivals, things like the Hyundai i20 and the Polo Vivo. And remember that because it's a Chinese brand, the value proposition is always generous. Like we've already seen the level of assisted driving. You get a nice rear sunroof, which is not today, it's very bright. But guys, for me, the ace in the sleeve for the MG3 is its warranty and after sales. I mean, there's a 7-year, 200,000K warranty and a 3-year, 45,000 kilometer service plan. Now, the service plan, that's pretty much of a muchness compared to the other vehicles in the segment, but a 7-year, 200,000K warranty, I think that will do well to allay the fears of many customers who will go, why must I trust a new brand? I mean, they've pulled out of South Africa before. Yeah, I remember that. MG, you did pull out of South Africa and then you came back. So now we have trust issues, and I get that. But 7-year warranty, I think that's really good. Okay, this brings me to a wrap up. Let's wrap this thing up. Short, sharp, and sweet, which is pretty much like the MG, really. It's honest, it's unpretentious, it's well spec'd, the build quality is adequate, the ride and drive is adequate at this price. But I really enjoy this car. I got into this car thinking, oh, this is just going to be cheap and nasty, but I think MG deserves some kudos for making a well thought out, competent hatchback. So Sean has just asked me a very interesting question. Would you recommend this and would you buy this? And personally, I'm going to go, well, I'm not going to buy a Polo or Polo Vivo because A, Polos are expensive and Vivos are getting the headlights stolen and those sort of things. And I think it's hard to argue against the value of this thing plus that warranty. So I'm going to tolerate the loud CVT droning, and I'm going to think this is a pretty decent car for the money. And of course, let's not forget that decent safety package. And yes, hopefully the chair issue has been sorted for our spec cars, and I will try get an update from MG in due course regarding that. So yeah, overall positive sentiments from me for the little MG3, but also got a bit of relief because it's good to be in a little hatchback. Not everybody wants a crossover, not everybody wants an SUV. But if you do want those vehicles, well, Koza. 83,000 vehicles for sale. Crossovers, SUVs, station wagons, hatchbacks, we have them all. And I will see you in the next video. Okay, bye.